This is our roadside forest. Every day, municipal and transportation employees work to maintain and preserve this resource that has become part of how we and others recognize our beautiful state. This forest not only provides us with a scenic canopy of green and in the fall an array of color, but it also challenges the expertise of our professionals as they strive to make the roadside safe for our public. From maintaining sightlines, protecting sidewalks and bus stops, to removing dying and damaged branches. These are all the responsibilities of our maintenance staff. Today, we'd like to talk about some of these fundamental maintenance practices focused on these employees that are responsible for the duties of roadside maintenance. First, we will take a look at higher risk trees and how to identify potential problems. Not only will we observe the obvious decay, but look at some of the hidden structural issues that may present a problem. Once identified, pruning techniques and how to properly trim and shape a tree will be looked at. And lastly, after we have removed the tree, how to properly plant and choose the right tree for the right place. Hello, my name is Kevin Kelly and I'm a member of the Connecticut Tree Wardens Association. We would like to present this video today in collaboration with the University of Connecticut Technology Transfer Center, and we'd like to offer thanks to those who have provided their assistance. The City of Hartford, Island Tree Experts, the towns of Windsor and Hebron, and a special thanks to the town of South Windsor for filming this presentation. I'd like to introduce Charlie Island from Island Tree Experts and a board member of the Connecticut Tree Protective Association. Charlie's been in the tree industry for about 30 years and we've worked together now for about 15 of those. Charlie's going to discuss high-risk trees and what to look for and how to deal with these in the municipal atmosphere. Charlie?
Yeah, when working with towns, it is important to periodically assess potential high-risk trees. It's important to get a good look at the tree and identify potential problems. At first glance, this tree may appear sound, but it's clearly hollow. The stem, you can see there's a lot of animal activity in the tree, and there's some evidence of some storm damage at the top from years back that has started to decay down the stem, weakening the lateral limbs. This area is not a particularly high traffic area, so the target area is somewhat low, so it might not have all that high of a risk factor. However, this area is used a lot by employees at the town hall here, and the tree warden felt that it does pose some risk, so I think it's scheduled to come down relatively soon. But it is important when assessing tree risk to get out and really take a good look at the entire site. A basic knowledge of this site is also important due to the fact that trees the portion of the tree that is below ground is often neglected. People don't think about that, but if there is recent construction in the area, some of the roots may have been severely damaged, if not entirely destroyed. It could have been trenching that severed the roots. There could be serious decay in some of the main structural roots, which could compromise the anchorage capacity of the tree. It could just topple over. You see that a lot when new sidewalks are installed and a storm comes along and the trees fall over. It happens all the time. Unfortunately, sidewalk contractors, that's their specialty. They don't consider the tree in the process. Improper tree maintenance can also lead to premature tree failure by taking out too much of the tree at one time, causing the tree to react by sprouting a lot, and those sprouts don't form strong unions with the main stem and can break off and fall on infrastructure, public rights of way. There are a lot of things like that you need to consider. Overall tree health is one of the first things that I do when assessing the risk factor in a tree. I try to look at a tree in the summer months to see if there is noticeable decline in the canopy. Stand back, look at the overall vigor of the tree. Things like other structural things. Personally, I feel the most dangerous thing are cracks. If you see large vertical cracks, that's a red flag right away. Decay in trees can take many forms. Hollow trees are not always high-risk trees. A tree can be completely hollow in the center and still be quite strong. The cavities are much more important. If you have a longer cavity, the longer the cavity is on the stem, the greater the risk. So I really think that sometimes trees are prematurely judged as high-risk trees when they may not be quite a great a risk. Of course, the greatest factor in determining risk is the target area. So if you have a kid's swing set right underneath the tree, even a small defect can be a very big issue. So a lot of it has to do with common sense, but a basic knowledge of tree physiology is important as well, and general knowledge of the site, like I said, soil conditions, things like that. A basic knowledge of fungal growth is important also, because if you see a lot of mushrooms growing along the stem or along the soil, some of those mushrooms may be beneficial. They may not be a big issue, but most mushrooms growing on stem wood can be an indicator that there's some serious decay going on and may need further investigation. Carpenter ant activity. If you see a lot of frass at the bottom of a tree, you know carpenter ants are working at the tree. The carpenter ants themselves don't harm the tree, but they're an indicator that there's some decay presently going on within the tree. These are all little tools that we have in our arsenal. We also use instruments, things as simple as a rubber mallet to sound the tree. Hit the tree with the mallet and you can tell through experience what it should sound like, a solid tree versus a tree with decay. Then we have more advanced equipment like a resistograph machine that actually measures the density of the wood by drilling into the tree and measuring the resistance that it takes to drill into the tree. And you could actually map out the size of a pocket of decay and map out the barrier zone that the tree is set up to wall off that decay. These are all things that we use, but a lot of it comes down to some common sense, but public input is usually the driving force. If people are more risk averse to a tree in a certain area, they can pressure town officials to take it down, and sometimes they take it down a little bit sooner than it should be. It's a difficult position for tree wardens to be in at times, because they're constantly striking that balance between addressing issues of public safety and trying to preserve trees. It's a delicate balance that it's become a real issue in the past few years, given the severe weather events we've had over the past 2 or 3 years. So having a professional give an opinion on a tree can really may save a tree from prematurely being removed, or may be able to identify a potentially serious risk and have it addressed more quickly. So these are some of my thoughts on hazard trees.
I would like to introduce Heather Dion, forester from the city of Hartford. Heather's been an arborist for 10 years, and she's going to talk today about the why, how, and when to prune a tree with her assistant, Jeff. It's all you.
Thank you. In a municipal, city, town setting, you're going to stumble upon many reasons why you want to prune a tree. In this case, looking at this yellowwood, we have some sightline issues, we have branches that are encountering the cars, so you want to address those issues. Timing for pruning, you want to focus after the leaves are out, up to when the tree is getting ready to go dormant. So I would say into October would be your border, and certainly throughout the winter, once the tree is dormant, you can go ahead as normal. You want to consider the season. Winter pruning for softwood such as pines, the wood is going to react differently than it is in the summertime. When you go to approach a tree, you want to look at the attachment point to the trunk, or to wherever you're going to make your cut. You're going to take it back to the node. Okay? And you want to stay outside of the collar, which will show you up close. Because in a forest setting, that's where the tree is going to shed its branch. I mean, trees naturally prune themselves in forest settings. In urban settings, we typically help with that, and that's why a rule of thumb, I guess, would be to take no more than you have to. The tree has adapted itself and grown into a way that it's sustaining, and in a harsh urban environment, it's already competing for nutrients, water, oxygen, and compaction. You know, there's mechanical damage, all of that. So a tree has a hard life as it is. So we do want to limit the amount of photosynthetic tissue that we're removing. So I'm going to go ahead and just start elevating this tree, removing if there's dead branches, if I see any broken branches, and crossing rubbing branches. Those are what I'm going to take out. Now, there's an area right here that we call the branch collar. And that's the point where the tree creates its own defenses in shedding or what have you to keep decay from entering the trunk. So we always want to make our pruning cuts outside of this line. If you go too close, that would be called a flush cut. If you go too far out, you're creating what we call a stub, and then the tree still has to lose that. So you're trying to reduce any extra energy that the tree has to put out for such purposes. Alright, so I'm going to remove this branch because it is crossing and rubbing with this limb. So I'm going to start with an undercut. I'm going to go far enough out so that way afterwards I can do my finishing cut without doing any damage to the tree. So start here. To have a sharp pruning saw. And now I'm going to do my final cut. Okay, we're going to continue with elevating this tree. I'll make my undercut. Prevent it from tearing. There we go. Okay.
See, and I would go right there.
Sometimes it's best to start on smaller stems just to see what it looks like afterwards and see if the tree actually raises itself up afterwards. Stand back and see if that branch is, it's still, I don't know.
It's pretty low when it's
It is pretty low.
Here.
Yep. So if we get a snow load or anything like that, it's still going to hang down. So it's probably best to take it back.
Now, as you can see, this tree is not only safer, but it looks much better than it did before. I'd like to thank Heather and her assistant Jeff for showing us how to properly prune this tree. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Jim Gavoni. He's the municipal forester and tree warden for the town of Windsor. Jim, planting trees is an important way to finish up our discussion today on how to handle roadside trees. Could you discuss with us what the important things are to think about?
I'd love to share that with you, Kevin. There's usually three phases that we look at when we plant trees in the urban environment. Urban environment is different than your natural roadside setting where you have a natural forest succession. In the urban environment, we plant the trees, we manage the trees, and we remove the trees. There's a lot of considerations we have when we plant trees inside the urban environment. We have to look at not blocking street lights, we have to look at not blocking traffic signals. Behind me we have a tree that's planted too close to a building. Those trees will put biomass on the roof that will cause premature decay of the roofs. We have to give consideration about sidewalks, lifting the sidewalks. Other considerations we have is that they don't have any type of poisonous berries or fruits that might affect our students in our schools. We also don't want them to drop fruits that are going to cause stinging insects. That can be a nuisance to our public. Other considerations we have is some trees have seeds and some trees don't have seeds. From a municipal standpoint, when it comes to cleanup, we don't want a locust tree that's going to be dropping its seed pods all over our sidewalks, staining them, causing cleanup every day. We can choose a tree that doesn't have any seeds on it. That'll be a nice cleaner tree when it drops on the ground. Another major consideration in right tree, right place is your power lines and communication lines. We don't want to plant trees under them, and we don't want to plant trees above them. Storm Alfred crippled this state for over a week. So right tree, right place is becoming a big, important matter in the state of Connecticut. At this location here, I'd like to share with you that we have utility service coming into this facility. We have overline power that drops into the ground. This ground service goes up and feeds the building behind me. When planting trees, as I mentioned, we don't want to plant trees under power lines, and we don't want to plant them over. So you have to take into consideration this service running up to the building, and that's an area that we would not want to plant the tree. If you want to be 50, 60 feet on the side of it, that's perfect. But if we plant the tree there, at some point when they're going to go repair these services, then we're going to lose that tree. We're going to walk up top this hill now, and I'm going to show you some well-planted trees. Hi, right now I'm going to show you a couple of trees that are right tree, right place. Behind me on my right, we have some Zolkovas. It's a beautiful street tree in an urban environment. The branching structure on the bottom goes up like a vase, which minimizes the amount of work that public works crews have to do to maintain this tree. This tree is also a salt-hardy tree in the salt environment from the salt that's put on the roads. When people exit this driveway behind me, there's no sightline issue because of the height of these trees here. Perfect tree for the setting. Now I'd like to show you a tree against this building over here. It's an oxydendron, a sourwood tree. That tree is planted too close to the building. It's a beautiful tree, but the vegetation on that tree eventually will get onto the roof of that building, causing premature decline. It'll also block the drains on that building, which is really a maintenance issue for the towns. Now I'm going to take you to another spot. Here we are on this piece of nice property here, and I have two beautiful trees to the left of me and to the right of me. Right tree, right place, perfect setting, plenty of room for these trees to grow. When they mature out, they have enough room to grow. They're not going to interfere with the parking lot, cars. It's going to be safe for people who come out here and picnic during the summertime. This is a beautiful Kuza dogwood here. It's going to add color in the springtime, signifying the change of season. This is the type of plantings that we like to see. So whenever planting trees, take the time to consider right tree, right place. And always remember, stay away from the power lines, stay away from communication lines, be careful of the sidewalks, be careful of the driveways, be careful of swimming pools, building structures. Give the trees a proper room to grow that they need to grow inside the environment that they should be in. At this point here, I'd like to touch base on tree selection for these sites. I find it's very important to purchase trees that are grown natively in our area or grown in the same climate. When selecting a tree, make sure that the tree has the structure that the tree is supposed to have. If it's a single stem, make sure that it's a single stem. If it's a double stem, make sure that it has a double stem. When you're observing the trees, just make sure that they don't have any type of girdling on them for tree wrapping. I want to talk a little bit about planting trees right now. When digging a hole for the tree, it really only has to be 4 or 5 inches bigger than a root ball. Once the hole is dug, make sure there's no glazing on the side of the hole. That has to be scratched up so water will move through it. When you go to set the tree, when the tree's set inside the hole, The roof layer on the top of the tree should be 2 inches above the soil level. If there's a basket on the tree, the basket has to be removed, the burlap has to be removed. If it's container grown, the container has to be removed and the roots have to be teased out. The same soil is put back into the hole that's been removed from the hole. When planting the tree and setting the tree in, firmly work your feet around the root ball, packing the soil down. Once the soil is up to soil level, then it's good to apply a 4-inch layer of double ground mulch that comes from your native trees around your forest area. Whenever mulching trees, we do not want to see mulch volcanoes. That's a terrible practice. The mulch has to be taken 2 to 4 inches away from the root flare in the tree. Once this is done, the tree's set to go. Gator bags are the best way to water your trees. When you put a gator bag on a tree, the plastic bags that you see, those bags allow the water to drip right into the root ball. Pruning doesn't occur for 3 or 4 or 5 years afterwards unless you have a broken branch or a diseased branch. Leave the branches on the trees, let them grow. Once you get 4 or 5 years out of the tree, then you might want to change the scaffold of the tree. Good luck, happy planting.
I'd like to thank everyone today, and once again the town of South Windsor and Drew, our film technician, for the filming of this production. If you have any questions about tree issues, reach out and call your local professionals, your local tree warden or local arborist. Please take the time to work safely so we can all enjoy our roadside forest.
Chewing on a piece of grass, walking down the road. Tell me, how long you gonna stay here, Joe? Some people say this town don't look good in snow. You don't care, I know. Ventura Highway